Well, welcome everyone to this webinar, Guardians of Water, Indigenous Women as Knowledge Holders and Stewards. My name's Dr. Annalisa Contos and I will be facilitating this session, and I'm really excited to be bringing this webinar and running it. Across the world, Indigenous women have long acted as custodians, protectors and knowledge holders of water systems. Their cultural, ecological and spiritual knowledge contributes to sustainable water governance, ecosystem stewardship, community resilience and climate adaptation. Yet Indigenous women's voices remain underrepresented in water policy, infrastructure planning and scientific discourse. Today, we have three amazing women from across the globe who will be speaking to us and bringing their experience as Indigenous women and knowledge holders, and sharing with us how we can learn from their knowledge and bring that into our practice. If we could jump to the next slide, please. So just a couple of housekeeping rules. The webinar will be recorded and it will be made available on demand. And the speakers are responsible for securing their copyright permissions if they're not the legal copyright holder. And the opinions that they're sharing are the responsibilities of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect IWA. Next slide. As you are using the, if you want to interact with us, and we certainly hope that you do, please use the chat box for general requests and for interactive activities. We can't respond to the raised hand, but if you want to send questions to the panelists, and we do have a session during the webinar, please use the Q&A box for that. So this is the agenda that we will be having. And as I mentioned, we have three amazing speakers, and then we'll have a panel discussion and Q&A. Just to kick off, so I might get you to put that slide down because we'll go to Valky in just a minute. But just to kick off, before we start hearing from our speakers, I would like to acknowledge country, which is something that we do in Australia that recognises that the Aboriginals have been in Australia for tens of thousands of years. So I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet all around the world. And I would like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and to the youth of today who will be the elders of tomorrow. And I would like to extend that respect to all First Nations people and Indigenous people who are joining us today. I am joining today from Camaragal country, which is part of the Sydney metropolitan area. But I had the great opportunity last week to be out on Kamilaroi and Ngamba country, and there'll be some photographs in Vanessa's presentation from that country. So our first speaker today will be Balkasu Balba from the Mamboro Finale Pastoralist Indigenous community of Cameroon. She has been working for the protection and promotion of the rights of Indigenous people for more than 15 years. She's the founder and president of the Indigenous Peoples and Sustainable Development Association and the vice national coordinator of the Network for Indigenous People and Local Communities for Sustainable Management of Forest Ecosystems in Central Africa. And she's going to be speaking to us today on the Indigenous women and water stewardship, looking at the historical and contemporary role of Indigenous women. So Balki, if you would like to turn on your camera and mic and join us for the webinar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon from Mongolia, currently in Ulaanbaatar for the COP 17. So as Annalisa said, I am Balkisupa from the Bururu Pastoralist Community of Cameroon. I work for the Network of Indigenous People and Local Communities for Sustainable Management for the Systems in Central Africa. I'm also the President of Indigenous People and Sustainable Development Association in Cameroon. So today we'll be talking about Indigenous women and water stewardship. I will look at the first thing I will try to look at in my presentation is when we talk about water stewardship. What does water stewardship mean to my community, and how is it passed from generations to generations? For us in the Bororo Pastoralist community and other indigenous communities in Africa, for example, just to highlight that we have diverse communities in Africa. We have people coming from the forest communities who are hunter-gatherers and fisher folks, and we equally have people coming from pastoralist communities. We have people from fishing communities. We have people from diverse backgrounds. And water for us means life, because without water, there is no life. Because water as very, very central to life. Indigenous people, we treat water as life, not only as life, but as a living relative. So we take very good care of the water, because we know the water is like a living relative, and we want to do everything to secure this water, because it is a sacred foundation of life, identity, and culture. Because most of the things we do around our culture, our identity, and our way of life is found in water. For example, in the community households, what we use is we use water to cook, we use water to drink, we use water to do almost everything that we do during the day. So without water, there will be no food. Without water, there will be hunger. Without water, there will be so many problems in the community. People will not be able to wash their clothes. People will not be able to do traditional rituals. There are many rituals that we do when we drink water. So our identity as indigenous people is really tied to that water. For example, like the fishing communities, they fish only in the water. That's where they have their fish. And then they have this traditional ritual in one of the indigenous communities in Cameroon. The forest communities, they have to initiate women at a certain stage when they grow up in singing clubs. So for them to be very good singers, they have to use a certain fish called the mwaka fish, and that fish is found in water. So if you cannot get that fish, it means you cannot be able to do that cultural ritual, initiating women into the singing calls and so on. There are many cultural aspects that we do with water. So water is equally not only a living entity, but it also possesses spirits. Spiritual. Water is spiritual to the indigenous community, because we use it to carry out a lot of spiritual activities, especially like cleansing activities. We use water. When there are even if people are ill, we use water to prepare the medicines that they drink. And not only that, water having spirit, it has both negative spirits and positive spirits. That is why in the indigenous communities, you see that there are certain times when people can go to the stream and fetch water. For example, in my community, we cannot fetch water at midday. We cannot fetch water very early in the morning. And then we cannot fetch water in the night, because we believe that at night and at midday, that's when the spirits, they come around to come and restore the water. They come to clean the water. So it's not good for the humans to be there, because most often when you as a human being, you go to the stream in the night, most often you can fall sick, you can have different problems. Some of them, they even have some illnesses like that, like as if they are mad because they went to the river in the night. So water is highly spiritual for us. We also care for water, not just through the physical knowledge, we carry with the spiritual knowledge. And this knowledge, we carry it from generation to generation. The water is also representing interconnectedness, because water is connected to almost everything we do. It is connected in a holistic perspective. We have like the rivers, the lakes, the rain, and everything. They are linked to our territories. They are linked to our lands. They are linked to our biodiversity, our human activities, as well as our community. Because when we have these things that are interlinked, without water, without the rain, we will not have our crops to grow. We will not have our food that we do hunting and gathering in the bush to get the food. We cannot have water that can water the soil. We cannot have water that can do many things in the community. So it is interconnected. Our biodiversity survives because of water. when there is rain and so on, we have plants that grow. We have certain species of plants that grow well, and we can use those species of plants. For example, in our community where we use as traditional medicines, we use plants to do traditional medicines. We use plants to do ethno-veterinary medicines in our pastoralist communities. We use plants that we prepare as herbs, put in water and give our cattle and other livestock to drink. So water is so interconnected with all the things that we do in our community. Apart from that, it has always been a kind of intergenerational responsibility that we have to not only care for the water, but we have to transmit also this knowledge from generation to generation. We have been transmitting this knowledge to our younger ones. For example, you see in the community, we transmit it from homes. The transmission of this knowledge starts from homes. The mother, when going to the stream, will always carry the daughters, so that the daughters can go and see what she is doing in the stream, how she is carrying the water, because even the way they carry water, they don't just carry water anyhow. There is a way they carry water, show them how to carry water, and then we have traditional conservation practices that we do to make sure that our water is always clean, it's always safe, it's always good, and then it doesn't dry off, because with the advent of climate change, water scarcity has been increasing, our waters have been drying off. So we have that indigenous knowledge that we have been practicing to make sure that we skim the water so that the water should not completely dry off. So most often it is done by indigenous women. And when these women are going to do these practices, they always carry their daughters, go and show them that, okay, this is what we do, this is how we do it, and the daughters, they copy. Another thing we have been encouraging now is intergenerational dialogues between the community members and the young people in the community, so that people who don't have time to learn maybe in the family, or they have other things that are occupying them, they can have that intergenerational platform where they can transmit that knowledge from one generation to the other. Because the water is here to serve not only this present generation, it is equally here to serve our future generations. So there are some approaches that we have been using, like when we realize that water is reducing, we can go to the stream, we clean, we dig a bit inside the water, we canalize it more better, especially maybe after rains. When rains come and then they dirty the stream, the place is full with mud and so on. The techniques that we use traditionally, where we clean the water, make sure the water continues running, and then the mud goes away, and we have clean water that we can always drink. The only thing now we are crying is this climate change and some challenges that have disturbing our water in our community. Then another thing is indigenous people, they have a decentralized way of managing water. Management of water is not a single responsibility of one person. There are many people who manage the water. In the community, it is known, they have like a small committee. That committee, they know that these are the women who are in charge of the water. These are the women who will take care of the water today. These are the women who will do maybe they want to plant some trees around the water and so on. So most often the decentralized way of carrying water, doing things and everything, managing the water is done in a system, the governance system that is known in the community and mostly headed by women. The men should also contribute in taking care of the water. For example, in my community, we have the pastoralists, people who carry the cows to go and give the water in the rivers, in the streams, and so on. So they have a particular time. They don't just go there at any time. They have a way they manage it. They go from, they have the hours. They know the hours that they're supposed to carry the cattle to the stream. They know that the women are supposed to be maybe washing dresses at this time. Then at this time, there's time for the cattle to come and drink. So the management system is done in a very organized way. And this ecological knowledge, we are transmitting it to the younger generations. So the things we have now as challenges, as I earlier said, is climate change. And then our ecological knowledge is not really recognized and respected, because some people see it, indigenous knowledge, like primitive knowledge, knowledge that is not scientific, knowledge that cannot be tested, and so on. So it's a big challenge, and this knowledge has not been integrated into policies. When it comes to policies on climate action, water management, and so on, it has not been easy. So my recommendations is for us to look at ways that we can combine indigenous knowledge, indigenous worldviews, and science, on how to improve water management And then we also look at how we involve women in decision making, because if we look at it critically, most of these works around water is done by women. Highest people who use water are women. But the problem is these women, they are not involved in decision making. Women and youths, they are not involved in decision making spaces where they can take good decisions. Then we also have to continue encouraging intergenerational transfer of knowledge so that this knowledge can continue to survive. This knowledge can continue to be there so that we can use it today, we can use it tomorrow, and we can use it with our future generation. Because nowadays, we have this issue of erosion of traditional knowledge being lost, especially with young people who maybe leave the communities and then they go to the cities to go and study. They go, they remain in the cities, they don't never come back. Some of them go, even when they come back, you tell them that no, the world has changed, they don't want to do these traditional things and so on. So it becomes a very, very difficult for the traditional knowledge to survive if we don't continue transmitting the knowledge from generation to generation. So those are some of the ideas I have to share with you concerning indigenous women and water stewardship. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Balki. I think you've raised a number of themes that will run through our session today. And I'm sure we'll hear from Vanessa and Loretta as well about how water is so related to life and connected. And again, we'll talk more about the challenges around that intergenerational transfer of knowledge, and also how we're combining Indigenous knowledge with science as well. So I think you've raised a lot of ideas for us to think through as this webinar continues. If we could get the slide deck back up again, and I'll ask Vanessa to join us for the next presentation. Vanessa, are you able to put your camera and mic on? Thanks.
Yep, just trying it now. It's taking a while.
Okay, cool. All right. So yeah, so I'll just introduce you first, actually, and then say next slide as you go. So Vanessa is a proud First Nations woman from Australia, and I had the privilege of meeting her when we did the Connection to Country program. Her identity, leadership, and advocacy is deeply grounded in cultural knowledge, responsibilities, and enduring connection to country that have been passed down through her ancestors for more than 65,000 years. She's a passionate advocate for the protection of country, waterways, culture, and the rights of First Nations people. She believes that caring for land and water is not only an environmental responsibility, but also a cultural, spiritual, and intergenerational obligation. And so she's going to speak to us today about cultural water in practice and what caring for country means and how important that is. So over to you, Vanessa.
Hello, everybody. My name's Vanessa Cook, and for thousands of years, I've wanted to learn more about my culture and what the ancestors done back in the day of the river connects with me because of they used to have birth trees, and they called ring trees to each section of different parts would be of the family. So I just want to talk a bit about that on that. Well, that goes back thousands of years, but today you can still see ring trees that are like just really dense, and they've gone thing, but you can still see a little bit of it. But the thing is, what makes me passionate in that about it is that they have made me paved the way for me to speak today, and I'm honored of that. And getting to speaking to everyone on here on how we look after country. Now, we have the deep connections to the river as I said, birthing, giving birth, and also we have our dreaming stories. So in different nations, there would be dreaming time stories that we would share. So, for instance, where I come from in the Riverland Berry, it's the Muyuwonk. So that's like a sort of a Loch Ness monster sort of thing. So yeah, that's our dreaming. But as I go down to other nations, there's different. It surprised me, and it's amazing stories. Like for instance, when I went with Annalise and we went to the country that Jace is on, it is so beautiful. And his story where the crocodile comes out, it just the different amazing dreaming time stories. Where it all comes together and it all connects to the land and the water. That's what amazes me. And the thing is, when I go out on country, I see a lot of mittens, and I see a lot of uh, scar trees and stuff. So they're still here today, but there's significant ones that we protect, and so there would be like rangers that would go out and they'll protect the land. So they'll go out and take care of the feral animals. So that will be like the feral cats, the feral rabbits, and just all the feral, like, yes. So working around looking after the land and the water. So coming back to the water, we also are deeply connected because, you know, they're obviously water is everything. Water is life. Water is like I say this a lot. Water is like veins. You can't connect. You can't physically say one part of your body is injured. You can one part of your vein. You cannot fix the other part. And like all these river systems and all the creeks and stuff like that, they all connect and they all connect to the land. So that's what Aboriginal, like, we try to keep that deeply connected so it's not separated. So we have the land and the water connection. So yeah, that's one part of it. And there's heaps, but there's also we make materials like we use the plants for baskets, so weaving. Um, so we have a lot of rushes alongside the river and only taking what is needed. Um, but
Vanessa, I'll just get you to stop a moment, and Afiam, could
yeah,
you jump through possibly just we've got a couple of slides that we haven't got to yet. So could we go to the next slide?
yeah.
Correct. Yeah, sorry, if you want to just quickly touch on that and then we'll jump through to the next one as well.
Yeah. So speaking for future generations, I would like to just let you know that we do like to put the youth first, and because they are our next future generations, they are our next elders, they are our next leaders. So we try to give as much as support as we can, it, yeah, and connecting them within schoolways. So connecting the schools together with my work, having them together and involving them in revegetating the plants and stuff like that. So getting the schools involved and making sure our youth are knowing, more or less passing knowledge on to what we know and what I've got passed on. So there's certain things that we do speak about and there's certain things that we don't speak about because there's women and men's business. So that's very important. Just wanted to touch on that. But for the future generations, we try to install that and embed that into them and get that for them to speak and do things for themselves and to just see if they love country as much as I love the water and the country as well. So yeah.
Okay. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to explain what country is, because most Australians know, but I think internationally it's not understood as an explicit concept.
So deeply very connected to country because of the Dreaming Time stories. The Dreaming Time stories, there are a lot of nations in Australia and we're all different. We're not the same. We speak different dialects, which is amazing, and it's beautiful to listen to other languages. So the stories, they connect, we connect with the stories, and the people, they will, when I can't explain it properly. So when we are talking about our stories, we have to talk about our stories correct, and because every nation has got a different story, but we're all connected to this land, and our ancestors that have left an imprint for us to tell the stories of what our dream time is very important. And yeah, we have a big, yeah, so like looking, so where I'm from, we are trying to talk about like burn offs, so we don't have a lot of, so that's understanding when when we have big fires, so we like to do the burn offs and stuff like that, so we don't have it again and it doesn't occur, but we're in a talking process about that now. So that's a bit more caring for country and community as well, because fires, they light up a lot of things, and unfortunately we have a dry air, a dry like land, so when it lights up, and but the identity that we have is it's yeah, it's very, it's a pull. It's a pull every day. So every day that I wake up, I'm just thinking about the ancestors and what they went through, and the dreamings. So we're connected to that.
We'll go to the next slide, please. So this is what you were saying a little bit earlier about how water connects everything together.
Yeah. So as I see, you cannot separate the land from the water, because like I was saying, the water is vein, so that connects to everywhere, and it even connects to the sea and vice versa. So that's important as well. So us people, we need to work together. We really need to work together to get this right, because I feel like in my area, my river is critically endangered. I feel like this is our last chance to work together and get this right, because if we don't get it right, our river is going to turn black. And unfortunately, yeah, we just can't reverse things back in time. But that's where water is very important to us. That's where biodiversity comes in, and that's where everything just rolls in, and it's all connected. So it's connectivity to everything, to people, to every nation.
Fantastic. We'll go to the next slide, please.
So culture, water, knowledge, and practice. Is that the same? Is that the one?
I think this was yeah. Sorry, yeah. I think yeah, you probably spoke to that. So we might jump to the next one then.
Yeah. So I feel deeply that there's no natural river flows. Everything's controlled. So there's still water, and when there's still water, everything dries and erupts, and erosion comes to the side and stuff. Well, it will just, things are declining these days, and unfortunately, we're getting a very dry. Uh, the climate change is coming, and it's coming. Yep. So, but what happens when we don't have natural water flows is we have obviously algae blooms, and we have the fish deaths, and that's native fish. And unfortunately, our river is filled with carp, and they're very horrible, and they dirty our river system and get it really mucky. So they're bottom feeders, and we've actually got two carps in our river, a small little tiny one that is pregnant, and we've got the big ones. So they're not really good to look at, but yeah, it's it's about trying to keep the natural flow going. But if we have the weirs and we have locks in our river system, so they stop the natural river flow. So if we that continues to happen, so what I argue in my case sometimes is we need to let some barrages up to let some natural flow going through and get it back how it was back in the day, and just at least try to get some of that, that natural flow going.
Right. Okay, next slide, please.
So me learning, I love learning about water, like getting into this, diving into this, it's amazing. And knowing that back in the day, the ancestors did give birth and did have ring trees, and that was important. And then also traditional fish traps, which is very amazing. And me and Elise went on a trip on a Petercon. Oh, it's amazing. It was beautiful. Them fish traps, amazing to see. Just knowing that how they done it and how the way Aboriginals back in the day done it for native fish. So, and they would put them into pools and like sit them there. So, fresh little pond pools. So if they wanted to have a fresh fish, they'll get it up and stuff like that. But that would be really good if we had natural things like that in place today. But unfortunately, we don't. Yeah, that's incredible. The fish traps. I'm even blown away. My mind even gets blown away every time I see this. Like, I'm Aboriginal myself, but my mind gets blown away knowing that they done this thousands of years ago. But it is amazing. It's amazing to learn, and I would love to teach younger generations. And that's all I'm doing is just ear bashing them about the river and how it works, and if we can do things and change things, if what they will want to see in the future. Yeah.
All right, we'll jump to the next slide.
So we really need to like the water governance be like need to work on that. Transparency. We need to work together. It is, like I said, it's very crucial. And be a partnership, be the partner to be sitting at the table and making decisions, to be actually there and saying what is right and what is wrong, and look, what are they doing wrong and what are they doing right, and we can change it for the better for the future, and we can have the next, next use for today, that will be the next elders, and sharing this knowledge on that I have, or other elders and other people have got, and sharing them with other people and letting them know how it all goes. But in the future, I can't wait. But yeah.
Fantastic. And we'll go to the last slide, which is sort of looking at how we take what you've spoken about and the importance of it as a global message.
Oh, look, it's amazing being on this webinar, and thank you, Annalise, for for inviting me to this and me being the one talking. But I was nervous, but hey, it's very important for everybody to know that, look, this is happening, and the river connects to the sea, and then the sea.
You've just ended up on mute somehow. We can't hear you. I'm not quite sure what's happened.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Yes.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
I was wondering if you could hear me or not. But yeah, it's very important for the whole world to know, like, that this is going on, that because everything connects, and we need to do this. It needs to be done now, and I'm privileged to be here and speaking as a woman, and to let a lot of people know that what's going on and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just privileged to be here and speak.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa. I think you've really brought through some of the themes that we started with about how important water is and how connected it is as a foundation of life, identity, and culture. So thank you very much. And our third speaker is Loretta Lovell, and she is bringing us two perspectives, which I'm really looking forward to. She's a lawyer, a governor, a regulator, and an environmental commissioner from Aotearoa, New Zealand. So she's helped establish New Zealand's modern quality and economic frameworks for water services as a founding board member of Te Amata ROA, which is the Water Services Authority, and she's now an associate commissioner at the New Zealand Commerce Commission. And for more than 25 years, she's advised iwi and Maori organisations on commercial and environmental matters. So I'm really looking forward to hearing her presentation on Indigenous perspectives in regulation and what's been achieved and potentially the setbacks that have happened as well. So Loretta, over to you.
Kia ora, Annalise, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa, ka whakapuna ki te maunga ko mohaka te awa ko tā ki te mitu waka he uri o rongo mai wāhine Ngāti Pāwera e whakatohea nei. Ko Loretta Lovell tōku ingoa. E mihi ana ki a koutou ngā wāhine mā, ngā kaitiaki o te wai nei. Tēnā koutou. Thank you, Annalise and team, for inviting me. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge Vanessa and Balki and the deep whakaaro and aroha that they brought tonight for me, in response to the wai, which is the water for us, their whānau and the communities that they represent as they speak. He mihi nui ki a koutou. Who am I? As Annalise says, I wear a number of hats, but I am a daughter of Rongomae Wahine, which is a tribe in New Zealand. It is a matriarchal tribe. So I was raised very strongly by significant, very strong Māori women. And I know the shoulders I stand on. But yes, I am a lawyer by trade and a regulator by intent, working across economic, water quality and environmental decisions in New Zealand. Those roles are not separate, nor are they separate to the fact that I am Māori and how I approach them. Why that matters really is regulation has significant consequences for the whānau, the communities, the country as a whole. So when you look at, is water safe? Do essential services actually work? Who carries the risk when they fail? What happens to the water and what do we leave behind? All of those things are built into regulation. So I very much see regulation and the role I take as one of service. So service to the people we make decisions for, service to the whenua, our land and our water, the wai, and responsibility to future generations. The challenge is carrying that responsibility and doing it in a way that reflects the obligations we have, but also acknowledges the Indigenous knowledge that brings so much to the decisions we make. Next slide, please. So just briefly, our regulatory framework is very much based around the legal mandates we have. Sorry, I can't help being a lawyer. We operate within those defined frameworks, and the law does not give us all the facts, does not give us the risks, it does not give us the consequences. And that is where Indigenous knowledge for me sits, not outside the regulatory framework, not as an optional cultural extra. It is a part of the knowledge needed to understand a decision properly. So my understanding of responsibility is shaped very much by Te Ao Māori. Next slide. And this is, how I carry Te Ao Māori into my mahi. And I acknowledge the speakers before me, and I take very strongly that reference to water is life. And for Māori, well, I say wai, which is water. Wai is not simply a resource. It carries identity, it carries whakapapa, our genealogy, and our wairua, our spirituality. There's a well-known whakatauki of the iwi of Wanganui, which I've always taken to heart, which is ko au te awa, ko te awa ko au. I am the river, and the river is me. And for me, that captures so much of our relationship. We are not separate from the wai. We are part of it, and it is part of us. And, we carry that with us. The concepts in this slide are, they're quite big and personal for each of us as Māori. But for me and my mahi, when I think of whenua, which is land, it keeps the decisions I make connected and grounded and reflecting the home that I have and the wai. Whakapapa is defined often as genealogy, but it reflects those upon whose shoulders I sit and the communities I serve. And kaitiakitanga is pretty well known. It's referenced in guardianship and looking after things. But kaitiakitanga for me is so much bigger in that it is also accountability and responsibility over time for the decisions I make. I take that very, very seriously. And, these cultural concepts alongside me as I do my regulatory work, they're part of how I understand responsibility and my responsibility moving forward. So I'm going to give you a practical example. If we move to the next slide. And this is probably a good one, given the conversations we've had beforehand. In this scenario, I'm asking you to sort of imagine a 1 in 100 year severe weather event, which it sort of feels like the world is having on a monthly basis, and New Zealand is no different. Imagine that your infrastructure is stressed, drinking water is interrupted, wastewater overflows, but after the immediate emergency response is complete, what happens? The community experiences one disruption, but as regulators, we see different statutory questions. So a water quality regulator will look at it from the role of drinking water safety and oversight of the functions of environmental performance. An economic regulator will look at it from investment, performance, risk, service quality and efficiency. And ultimately for the Commission is the long-term benefit of consumers. So it's the same event, but it comes to two regulators through different statutory lenses. And iwi Māori knowledge and perspectives will be material to those questions in different ways. But it is material because it brings the place-based, the knowledge, the tikanga, the history that you just don't get from pure data. So I won't repeat them, the slides, but just to give you some examples of what we have seen in New Zealand. When water is accessible, that's fine. And when the supplier says, supplier of water says emergency drinking water was provided during this sort of scenario, as a regulator, we could take them at face value, or we can have a talk to the whānau and the community. And they're just as likely to say, and I've seen it, that the drinking, the emergency drinking water was too far away. There was not enough of it. Communication fell. Kaumātua, our old people, could not access the water, or our mokopuna, our children, got sick drinking the untreated water that was available. So compliance is not always the same thing as access, but we need to have those conversations. We need to be talking to the people on site to understand that, because we won't get that necessarily from data. And in New Zealand, we are very dependent on marae, which are our places of, they are the places where, as Māori, we come together. When there is a disaster, or when there is a significant event, so often it is marae that the community goes to, because it's the place where people can sleep, they can drink, they can eat. When these sort of disruptions happen regularly, the risk is that instead of fixing the infrastructure, marae and others just pick up the slack, or they absorb the failure of the infrastructure, and that's never a good thing long term. And it doesn't, it says a lot about criticality in terms of what is fundamental in terms of our infrastructure and how we as regulators make decisions to ensure that it is actually fit purpose. So a network can look acceptable. The averages data can say it looks acceptable, but a remote community can tell you that it's failing repeatedly. And where that happens, often those communities will buy generators and all those things. They'll try and fill the gap. But again, as a regulator, we want to see resilience. We want to see that these communities are served and cared for in a way that is appropriate and ensures that they are kept whole. Indigenous knowledge, in-place knowledge, is fundamental to telling us what's happening in place, and I can't understate how important it is to engage. So for us as regulators, we have different mandates, we have different questions, but unless we have that background information, unless we have that conversation, our decisions aren't necessarily whole or the best decisions for those communities. Slide 5. So again, just briefly, Indigenous knowledge can impact decisions. As a regulator, a full evidential picture does not predetermine outcome, but it improves the quality of the judgment. Indigenous and place-based knowledge is a core component of that assessment, because without it, you just don't have the full picture, either of scale or the effect of the communities you're serving. It's incumbent on the supplier to engage with iwi, Māori and communities, but equally it's incumbent on the regulator to ensure that we have the material and information before us to understand the impacts of our decisions. That comes with engagement and being proactive. And then last slide. So what I would leave as a regulator is, it comes back to responsibility. When we do our work, we should be rigorous about the regulatory framework, but be equally rigorous about whether the knowledge before us is enough to understand what our decisions mean for the people and the places and the water, and for those who come after us. And that's how I try and approach this mahi: service, responsibility and accountability. Nō reira, imhi ana kia koutou, kia tiakina te wai, kia tiakina te tangata mō ngā uri whakatupu. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora koutou.
Thank you so much, Loretta, for everything that you've raised and speaking from both perspectives of the challenges around regulation and how we look at that, and even the difficulties different regulators have, but then also about, I think that last point you left us with about is the knowledge before us enough is really quite a key one. We do have a poll for people to just let us know about how much you've been involved in, I guess, what your background is in terms of your understanding of Indigenous knowledge, which will just help us as we move into this Q&A session. So I might invite our other two speakers to pop their cameras on as well as we see that, because I would really like to ask, there's to sort of reframe possibly a question that Leah has asked. She had asked about examples of Indigenous knowledge combined with modern engineering knowledge, but I might expand that out to scientific approaches as well. Have you seen examples where Indigenous knowledge and scientific approaches or modern engineering have successfully worked together, and what made those partnerships effective? I don't know whether it's you or Balki or Vanessa would like to talk about, I guess, examples of any examples you can speak of in that area. So, no. Well, I might, I guess, pose another question then, about what unique knowledge and perspectives do you think Indigenous women bring to water management that are missing from conventional systems and conventional approaches?
So I was just playing with my phone before being able to answer the earlier question, but look,
okay.
in my experience, Māori women often carry that knowledge of grounded, the whānau, our nuclear family, and they lead us. They are the ones that are the ones that tell us that when the children are sick, or when there's something wrong with the water, or when there's something happening in terms of the rivers and things like that. I've been in hui where I've had kaumātua saying that, when they were children, they would be able to fish in the river that is their awa, and now the water is so low they can walk across it. And you sense and you understand just the feeling of, I would say, mamai, the hurt of that. So as someone who has to make decisions, whether it's environmental decisions or other, when I am listening to Māori, and they're speaking of that experience, so often it is Māori women.
Vanessa, would you like to?
Yes, Annalisa, just to add, what is the unique knowledge that Indigenous women bring, or Indigenous people in general? I will talk about Indigenous science, or Indigenous knowledge is science on its own. It's science that we have been using for a very long time. It is something that is tested and proven. And not only that Indigenous science, but they bring another aspect which is missing in conventional stuff, like the spiritual knowledge surrounding water management. We have spiritual knowledge that we use to manage water. And then another thing we use is, in terms of the traditional knowledge, we do a lot of observation. We observe a lot. And we observe, and then we also have local indicators that we use to look at whether things are okay with the water and whether things are not okay. And we have local indicators that are known to the knowledge holders. They know that, okay, when they see this, know that the water, there is a problem with the water. When they see this, okay, it means the water is okay. If they see maybe a particular insect, they know that maybe the water will dry up. So that local indicators, those are some of the things that are really missing in terms of the scientific knowledge when it comes to water management.
Yes, I have to agree. Sorry, in conversations that I've had, I think there's a really strong systems understanding that Western science likes to really bring things down to a single indicator or certain things to monitor, and it fails to account for the complexities. And whereas Indigenous knowledge, as I have observed it, has a much greater understanding of the interlinks and the signals. Loretta?
Yeah, I was literally going to say that the strongest examples I've seen where Indigenous knowledge and science have worked successfully is where we're not asking either to surrender their integrity, if that makes sense. So where you have science speaking to the monitoring or modelling or ecological analysis, but then you have kaumātua and local knowledge holders who have decades of observation of the awa, the species, the tides, the spawning. They've held that place close with what we would call rāhui, where they close off areas to protect them. All of that knowledge and the why, the where is fundamental, and they sit side by side. They don't have to compete. And when we see that, that's when you see the success. The respect, the curiosity, and the testing together.
Yes, I think that can be very powerful. I remember in the drought, and Indigenous colleagues speaking of how they were trying to secure a water supply for a community that was predominantly Indigenous, and they had been colonised sort of 6 generations, and they asked the farmers, where should we drill bores, and didn't find any water. And then they asked Auntie, and she told a Dreamtime story of how the rainbow serpent had come down from the mountain and disappeared. And when they drilled there, they found water. Certainly one example. Vanessa, do you want to comment on the perspectives that Indigenous women bring to water management that you think might be missing? I know you're very passionate in the work that you're doing at the moment around the Water Act, and which is looking at particularly the Murray-Darling Basin, which is the big river in Australia. It's about, I don't know, 1/5 the size of Europe.
Yes, it is. It's very, very big, and it's the knowledge that we try to install in the kids, but it's the dreaming times that don't get connected with this. Like, I agree with what Loretta said. It's really hard for to connect if you have to physically be there. But yeah, it's for as an Aboriginal woman, I just want to keep my knowledge going and I speak to the Murray-Darling Basin, and I try to put put myself and what I think, and then what the elders and that have told me to pass along and to give knowledge onto, and just to share it, just to let people know that we are very connected and very interlinked with this, because this land is our mother, and like the veins, as I call it, is the river, and the creeks, and at the heart, we as a people, we need to keep it beating, so we need to keep this going and look after the mother as the land, and that's how I've always got it told. So yeah, it's yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us. I'm very mindful of the time, so I'll sort of wrap up our Q&A and panel session here. I'll just share the results of the poll so people can see, I guess, the background of everyone who is here. I would really like to thank our 3 panelists. It has been absolutely wonderful to have these perspectives. I'm really passionate about what the International Water Association can do for bringing Indigenous knowledge into modern governance and modern water management, and how we can support Indigenous communities in the water and environmental space to connect with one another. And so this is, I think, a very early step for us in bringing together international conversations around water stewardship and Indigenous knowledge, because often when I speak to people, particularly within the more Western space, and you talk about Indigenous water, it's really seen as sort of water, sanitation and health, and there's a very limited understanding of the depth of knowledge, the spirituality, and that connection to country, to land, that water is life. So I'd really like to thank the 3 of you for joining us and sharing your perspectives. I'll now just move to our closing slides, if we can get them back up. But yeah, thank you. So we've got some upcoming webinars and events, which are sort of, I guess, a bit more around our traditional traditional areas. So this one that's coming up towards the end of August on mainstreaming water sensitive design and planning, which will be an interesting one as we start to look at how we work at that within our cities. Next slide. Looking at formalising manual pit emptying services in informal settlements will be on the 3rd of September. And the next slide. And then coming up in October is the World Water Congress and exhibition. And there will be a webinar on the 2nd of September where we will be launching the Women in Water program. So that'll be happening from 1 to 2 British Standard Time. So if you are coming to the World Water Congress, and I know there's been a lot of awesome chatter in the chat around connecting for Congress, that would be I highly recommend that webinar to you to come to that and hear what's happening with the Women in Water program. It's been we've been pulling together some incredible activities and opportunities to connect and to hear from a great diversity of speakers. So please join us for that webinar, and then you can plan for coming to the event as well. And then in November, we'll have the Digital Water Summit in Turkey, which if that's the area that you're working in, I'm sure that will be a fantastic event. Well, IWA seeks to bring together professionals from around the world and across disciplines. So if you would like to join, then please do so, and you can get 20% off new membership. So thank you very much. That wraps up our presentation. I hope that you found it enjoyable. I found it an absolute privilege to meet with these 3 amazing women and develop this webinar. And I really, I think if you are interested in more of this and you are an IWA member or interested in being a member, I really encourage you, if you are more in the ally space, to think about how we can be supporting these conversations and bringing them from on the ground, on country conversations to actually have a real global network and global interactions. So please join me in thanking all of our speakers again. I really, I've learned so much from having them.